Hello, superstars. Welcome to today's class. I guess you're fine and you're ready to learn. Our lesson for today is going to be on the topic arms of government. Can you repeat that? Arms of government. Okay. Now, the arms of government can also be called the branches of government. So you can either call it the arms of government or the branches of government. Now, there are three arms of government. We have three arms of government, which are one, the legislative, two, the executive, and three, the judiciary. So these are the three arms of government. Now let's talk about the legislative. The legislative is one of the arms of government. The legislative is the arm of government which make laws that governs the people. So the responsibility of the legislative arm of government is to make laws. Okay? Now, at the federal level, the legislature or legislative is called the National House of Assembly. It's called the National House of Assembly, and this National House of Assembly is divided into two: the Senate and the House of Representatives. Every state has representative in the National Assembly, and the total number of the members or in the House of Assembly is 360 members. So the House of Assembly has 360 members. Now the House of Senate, which are also called the senators, they are 109. So in the House of Senate we have 109 members or 109 senators. Each state has about 3 senators who are elected by the people of the state. The head of the senator or the head of the Senate is called the Senate President, while the head of the House of Representatives is called the Speaker of the House. So when the National Assembly wants to make laws, both the House of Representatives and the Senate all come together to agree on the law. Okay? Now, at the state level, there is a state House of Assembly. So, the federal level, the legislative is called the National Assembly, while at the state level it is called the State House of Assembly, while at the local level it is called the council members. So at the local level the council members make laws. Now let's move on to the next arm of government, which is called the executive. The executive. Now this is the arm of government which oversees the day-to-day running of the government. Now the duty of the executive is to execute the law. The head of the executive is the president at the federal level, and other members of the president's cabinet, which include the vice president, the ministers, and other special advisors. Okay, at the state level, the head of the executive is the state governor, followed, and the members are the deputy governor and the commissioners. While at the local level, the head of the executive is the chairman of the local government council, and the members are the local government council members. I hope you understand that. Okay, now move on to the last, which is the judiciary. The judiciary. Anytime you hear the word judiciary, it has to do with the laws, courts. So the judiciary is the arm of the government who interprets the law and also punishes people who break the laws. Okay, so the judicial arm of government protects the people and the government. Now, at the federal level, the judiciary has to do with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is the highest court in the country. Now, the head of the Supreme Court is called the Chief Justice. A member of the Supreme Court is called a justice. And there are 21 justices in the Nigerian Supreme Court. I hope you get that. There are 21 justices in the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Okay, the Federal Judiciary also consists of the Federal High Court and the Federal Court of Appeal. So the courts at the federal levels are the Supreme Court, the High Court, and the Court of Appeal. Now, the judiciary at the state level consists of the State High Court, the State Court of Appeal, and the Magistrate Court. While at the local level, the courts are the customary courts. Okay, there is a customary court, and the customary courts are the lowest courts in Nigeria. Do we get it? While in the northern Nigeria, there is also the Sahara courts. So don't forget, at the state level, we have the state courts, state high courts, we have the state court of appeal and the magistrate court. While at the local level, we have the customary courts, and it is the lowest court in Nigeria. Okay, let's look at checks and balances before we go. Now, the three arms of government need to check and balance themselves, and this enables the arms of government to ensure that no one becomes too powerful or abuse their power vested on them. Now, each arm of government is checked by the other two in different ways. For example, the president can veto a law passed by the National Assembly. What does this mean? If the president needs to sign a law and he refuses to sign it, that law becomes a veto law. Okay. Then also the Supreme Court can check the National Assembly by declaring a law unconstitutional. So these are some ways that the arms of government need to check and balance themselves. Now let's look at the cooperation between the local, state, and federal governments. Now the three levels of government needs to cooperate. This is very important because it ensures that the affairs of the country is run smoothly. Now, for example, the states and local governments need to receive grants from the federal government. The local states and federal governments work together by making and enforcing laws that deals with crime and all this. So the three levels of government also need to cooperate with one another. Okay, so this is where we draw the curtain for today. Now let's take a look at some interactive questions before we go to check if we really understood the lesson. 1. At the federal level of government, who are the members of the executive? A. The president and his cabinet. B. The governor, commissioners. C. The chairman. The right option is A. The president and its cabinet. Then 2. Number 2 interactive question. What is the head of the House of Representatives called? What is the head of the House of Representatives called? A. Senators. B. Speaker of the House. C. Chairman. The right answer is B. Speaker of the House. So this is